moments. We do not need to watch second-grade television shows the moment we get out of a business situation. We can have leisure enough to think, and in this leisure we can cultivate some type of understanding or knowledge superior to what we have now. In leisure we can read good books. In leisure we can develop habits and talents and abilities that are latent within ourselves. In leisure we can come to understand our friends better. In leisure we have more opportunity to share in the lives of our children. We cannot afford at this time to simply use leisure as an escape from labor. This is something we can no longer afford to do. Leisure must be useful. It does not want it to be dour or melancholy or sad or gloomy, but it must be a little bit serious. It must be serious at the same time perpetuating a sense of humor without which all fails. We need, however, a certain amount of time to grow, and that time is for us leisure. There are two periods of growth beside leisure. One is childhood, when, however, we have not yet experienced the need of responsibilities. Then there is retirement, in which we have left the heavy labor of life and wish to do nothing as long as possible. Or, if not that, at least we are no longer strong enough in our thinking to want to work real hard. We want to forget the problems that have burdened us. We want to relax and rest. Well, rest is wonderful, but rest is also leisure. And no one can really rest doing nothing. To just sit and look at the ceiling is not real rest. So most people have something they do when they're resting. But is it something that they really should be doing? Or is it simply wasting time? Is it wasting this thing that we have so much to be grateful for? This thing that gives us the opportunity to grow every minute to the very moment of decease. No matter how old we are, we can grow some way, do something that is of value, or contemplate our own lives in terms of estimating value and using our own career as a textbook which will help us to understand life. So that leisure is something we should very definitely never waste. Now, relaxation is very good. We all need to relax. But leisure is relaxation if it is properly used. Leisure and relaxation are one thing, because if we try to use leisure for tension and get all worked up over something, it isn't leisure anymore. So we have several hours a day, maybe a number of days a year, and some years of life, in which we can contemplate the realities and values. We can make new assessments of the real reason for our own existence. We can begin to develop various overtones. Now, we have, of course, two possible inducements for this. One is to grow, and the other is to gain profit. Many people use leisure time to create new business organizations, or to manufacture products, or to become involved in some type of profitable occupation. Leisure time is therefore sometimes merely dedicated to economic improvement. Unless this is absolutely necessary to survival, I don't think it should be cultivated. Leisure is a time in which we can live with God and ourselves. Leisure is an opportunity to search for value. And if we are not impelled to search for value, then we must develop that gift. Otherwise, we shall be part of that worldwide spread of failures upon which we are so reluctant to give attention. Actually, therefore, leisure is a good thing, and it gives us a lot of opportunity. Nearly everyone has values. Now consider, for instance, that the human being has over 40 potential specializations of value within himself. There are at least 40 different possibilities for career, for growth, for improvement, for fulfillment, and for instruction. These 40 faculty powers will not all be developed in any particular embodiment, nor should they need to be. But as Dr. Lavater so well pointed out over nearly 200 years ago, that it's a shame for an individual who has 40 capacities to live and die with the use of only 3, or 4, or 5. But this is what is happening. The technician on the computer uses 3 or 4 faculties and depends upon his home life for the rest. And because he is an expert on the computer, his home life may be pretty much neglected anyway. But it is not good for a person to have only one tremendous dedication, nearly always for profit, fame, or something of this nature. The leisure should be used as a cultural instrument. We are expected to divide the day into labor, leisure, and rest. We have, therefore, the leisure to meet with others, to think with them, to enjoy communion with good things, to study, to travel, to have all kinds of useful opportunities. But these all fail if there is no recognition of usefulness within the individual himself. If none of these things mean anything to him, and all that is important is a bottle of beer and the TV, he is not going to achieve very much. And his failure is a miniature of the world's failure. He is just a microcosm of the world condition. He is doing exactly what is causing the trouble for all humanity. He is suffering for them, and he is suffering also because he is like them. So this should require further emphasis. Out of leisure comes the possibility of a little deeper approach to life. Leisure gives opportunity for the cultivation of art, of music, of literature, and of religion. Leisure gives the individual the opportunity to contemplate and meditate upon the great values of living. It enables him to become aware of the nobility of those who have gone before and the sacrifices they have made for the perpetuation of human culture. So all kinds of leisure kind of lift the individual up a little. They lift him up to a new sense of his own identity. He suddenly becomes aware that he can think, that he can learn, and that his life does not have to be a wheel in a squirrel cage, that he can have a personal existence even though he lives in a world of monotonous identification of work. Actually, therefore, the beginning of our whole problem is that the person should realize he can grow, realize he has the opportunity to grow, and develop the intensity which will make him make the most of the opportunity. It is perfectly possible for each person to become very much wiser and better than he believes he could be. The greatest wisdom in this world comes not out of formal schooling, but out of the careful consideration and thoughtfulness concerning the experiences of life, and also an observation of the environment in which he lives. So with this type of thing, we also have other problems. We can go to Socrates, for instance, for a little consolation. When the time came for the archons of Athens to sentence Socrates to death, his friends, disciples, and even Xanthippe wept for him. But Socrates said, "Don't do it. Don't weep for me. Weep for the men who condemned me, because I'm leaving, but they're going to have to live with this for a few more years." Any individual, therefore, who does what is wrong, or hurts or injures, must live for a time with that which he injures, whereas the injured thing nearly always escapes. This is another interesting fact in the study of life's problems. So the person must kindly come to the conclusion that there are two paths that he can follow, one of which is fulfillment of appetite and desire, and the other is perfection of character. Religion finally leads the person to become a citizen in a larger universe, and this larger universe is here now. It is a mistake to assume that we are just one people dedicated to wealth and competition. There is already a world of beauty right here. There is a world of friendship right here. And if we become a friend, we will have a friend. If we begin to live on a higher level of thinking or acting, we will discover that there are others on this level also. That it is not necessary to think that we are all alone in a wicked world. There are others like ourselves, and the moment we become like them, we recognize them. And the way to know the better is to know how to realize the better. And how to do that is simply to become better ourselves. So if we lift ourselves up, we will not land in a vacuum. We will land in the company of a considerable body of dedicated people who want to do the best they can to become good people and wise people and loving people who have overcome at least some of the physical limitations which have become the plague of our civilization. So the possibility of growing is not to move into isolation. It means to move into a higher stratum of the world's culture and find that there are there many who can help us and whom we can help. This is a part of life. Another point that we have to take into consideration, wherever there is a great misery, there is a job. Wherever a world is in great trouble, the thoughtful person must be trying to help. No one can afford to stand by and do nothing while others suffer. And while each person may have a different capacity to assist, there must be something. There must be at least a wonderful and cheerful and thoughtful prayer for those in trouble. There must be some expression of concern for that which has not achieved integrity. There must be something for those who are still struggling to meet the common problems of living, and it's only possible if those who try to help them have already attained some proficiency in this matter themselves. They may not have done everything that's necessary, but they're working in the right direction. So all along, we have a kind of realization that I think is summarized in classical and even the better modern idealism, and that is that we live in a world that is basically and essentially spiritual. We live in a world in which a divine power is the dominant in all things. We therefore know that this divine power is good, and that this divine power is not there to destroy us. It is not a constant punishing agent. The idea that we are here to suffer is not due to our cause or due to the power that created us. It is due to our own lack of willingness to accept the responsibilities of proper living. This universe is a magnificent, wonderful thing. And every one of us must ultimately become a graduate from the Universal Academy. We must all, in the due course of time, go through all the grades, finish the curriculum, and become graduates. We must all become, in a sense, the Phi Beta Kappas of the University of Hard Knocks, which is one of the biggest institutions in the world and one of the most valuable. So with this concept that we are not here to suffer, we're here to find out what causes suffering and correct it. We are not here to rebel against the infamies of our kind. We are here to grow strong enough and wise enough to help other people to also develop their internal potentials. And if the problem of suffering comes along, we are here, if we are wise people, to decide that it is better to suffer ourselves than to pass suffering on to others. that in every instance, the wiser the person is, the better he can control his own fortunes and misfortunes. It is no longer necessary for him to lean helplessly upon others no wiser than himself. As he looks through his assessment of values, he can find out where his courage lies, where his hopes are, where his faculties support him. And if he finds that these things are not good enough, then he must impose upon himself a self-designed curriculum. The young person who wants to graduate from the university has to go to school. And actually our present life is the University of Hard Knocks in which we all have to graduate. And the universe has provided us this for one reason only, that until we achieve this within ourselves, our divine natures cannot be perfected. We cannot grow unless we become more aware of the meaning of life. And the meaning of life is growth and sharing and serving. And the great powers of life are to love, to think, and to serve. These are the things that we must all bear in mind and understand. Now, most people have read a book or two on the subject, and those who are, thoughtful people have more or less this dedication already. In fact, there's very few people who have not read the New Testament or some part of Scripture of some religion without realizing that they are in the presence of a doctrine of forgiveness, of love, and of fellowship. That we are actually, as the Sufi says, destined to be friends of God. God is our elder brother, our great friend, and our hope. God also is a being that has no need in itself, but the needs that it appears to have are the needs that we have for each other, and which we assume to be of divine origin, when the needs are nothing but the accumulation of the misfortunes with which we have plagued one another down through the ages. It is not deity that plagues or burdens or punishes. It is the deed itself, which, if wrong, has to be corrected. Now, this is the only way in which the individual can be educated. Here we are with nearly 5 billion people, perhaps a few more, scattered over the continents of the earth. It is impossible for any system of knowledge that we know, or any university, to be large enough to educate them all. And it's even more difficult because of language, of race, of interests, locality, environment, heredity. All of these things have to be taken into consideration. So it is impossible to create a school great enough to teach everybody. And of course, if one tried, there would be an immediate warfare and conflict and a great turmoil with everyone mad at everyone else. Therefore, it can't be done that way. The way it is, instead of having one school for all these people, what we have is one need which each of these individuals must experience in himself. Each individual is in the same trouble. Therefore, whether he knows it or not, each individual must find his way out by the same path. There is only one path, and that is through self-discipline and dedication. There is no other way of working it out. It's the only way is the person himself enters the private university of his own memories, of his own thoughts, of his own beliefs, of his own environment. He sees the broken home. He sees the delinquent child. He wonders about his own mistakes. And out of all this, he develops a curriculum. The only way in which the world can be educated is each person to take the responsibility for his own enlightenment. And if he does this, things get much better and life becomes much more endurable for himself and everyone else. If we want to start on a more or less, simple basis, just look at your own life. Look it through back to the beginning. Many people looking through their lives have told me it wasn't so bad. They thought they got along pretty well. Others wish to forget it as quickly as possible. But the ones who want to forget it are the ones who should remember it, because they are the ones who have unfinished business. There is an unfinished business as long as we cannot look upon life with quietude and peace. There is unfinished business if all we can remember is hurts. There is unfinished business as long as we hope to revenge ourselves for something, real or unreal. There is also something wrong if our sorrows are involved in things that are not important. If our lives have been destroyed by loss of money, we are in a pretty sick condition. All of these things we have to weigh by going back and seeing just what we were and what we were doing. Going back as early as memory permits. We try to figure our relationship with parents, our relationships with brothers and sisters, and gradually as we grow older, the relationships with teachers and friends, educators, and finally into marriage and our relationship with the spouse and children. All these things are pictures. And I've heard many people say, in going over it, that if they could do it again, they would do it differently. Well, this is the most magnificent discovery they have made. But having decided if they do it again, they would do it differently, they overlook the fact that they are still doing it again, right then and there. Therefore, they can do it differently immediately, if they so desire. It is perfectly possible to benefit by past experience at almost any day of living. Most of all, people will begin to discover that a great deal of sorrow was unnecessary, that they regretted the things that should have been overlooked or forgotten in the beginning. Sorrow over many things is unnecessary, and most of it is useless. We have to realize that sorrow is a human reaction, which we will keep. It will be there, but also in every case it will be gradually made into a beautiful memory of some kind. It will be remembered for the truth, the beauty, the wisdom, the love in it, but the incident itself will fade out. Always along the way, therefore, we have this tremendous demand to change ourselves, to grow up, to make new use of the faculties that we possess. And we do it by using the textbook that has been given to us. The great alchemist Raymond Lully said that God had given man 3 textbooks upon which to base wisdom. The first is Holy Writ, the second is nature, and the third is himself. These are the 3 great books which each one of us must learn to read. It is not possible for us to read the book of God directly. Therefore, we have to read it through Scriptures. And these Scriptures are the records of sanctified, thoughtful, and dedicated persons who have had the highest and most noble motives that we know of in humanity. The second, of course, is nature. That was how Lao Tzu became a great philosopher, sitting by the side of a hill and looking out upon the beauties and wonders of the world. And he saw nature unfolding. We can do that today, but the moment we do this, we find out something that perhaps Lao Tzu could only intuit. We find out that nature is a fulfillment of rules, that nature in its own way is constructive, beautiful, and fulfilling, that everything that is necessary is there. Every instinct in man, in the animal world, is towards survival, security, and the fulfillment of the laws of the kind, whatever they may be. The human being, with his own book, has all kinds of texts to study. He knows what attitudes make him sick. He knows how worry has given him a stroke. He knows how poor nutrition has endangered his heart. He knows all the physical rules that he should live by. He knows that while he may not wish to be a diet victim, that he will have to be a student of physical nutrition if he wishes to have the maximum efficiency during the years of his life. If he does not do this, then he will have to face the difficulties of his own neglect of the rules of proper conduct. Then, of course, not quite so visible, is his inner life. But while it is true that he will accept that certain things that he eats will make him sick, he has never been willing to recognize and understand that certain feelings make him sick, that certain attitudes make him sick, and that he will continue to wreck the physical by using and misusing the powers of the metaphysical adversely. Also, then, he will also find that he can have a sick mind. This doesn't necessarily mean that he has to be institutionalized as a mental patient. A person has a sick mind who is devoted to fear, grief, and unpleasantness, who is highly competitive, who is critical of those around him, all that type of thing. If he is always on edge, if his temper is uncontrollable, if he is a nuisance to other people, he will be a danger to himself. This is another one of the facts of life that we all have to learn. But because he has a mind that can make him sick, and he doesn't have the physical pain of physical illness, he pays no attention to the mind. He just considers that it's quite possible for him to be unpleasant if he feels like it. Well, other people are. Why shouldn't he be? So other people's mistakes become a justification for our own, and this itself is 100% erroneous. But actually, the individual has these other forms of illness which arise from misuse of faculties. The brain, for example, is a rather handsome little fellow, if you can find him. He is rather nice, too. And in fact, he can become a spoiled child in our keeping. He can be actually, a habitual criminal as far as that's concerned. The mind can be all things. But the mind is also there. If we use it well, it supports the emotions and protects the body. If we use it badly, it destroys itself and destroys the emotions and body with it. The mind, therefore, being the first superintendent and supervisor of our personal lives, should be brought into proper order. It must be educated not in abstract sciences, but educated in the problems of daily living. It must be a counselor that can always be called upon in need. It must be the most perfect and useful of all psychoanalysts. It is also a great possibility in the field of psychotherapy. The mind must keep us healthy, mentally, emotionally, and physically, and if it isn't healthy and is unable to do it, then we're in trouble, and we go out and try to pay other people to do it for us, and as a result we lose money. But we do not cure the trouble. So the mind is a part of our lives. It's a part that requires discipline. It is something that we have to improve. We have to get a mind that is fair, honest, gentle, lovable, kindly, all these things, and it must also be addicted to common sense. It must be able to look at things that happen and see why they happen and accept it. We use the mind now largely to create excuses for our own misbehaviors. We find it easier to try to rationalize our way out of a problem than to solve it. This is, again, not solutional. With a little work, we can find that we can live today in this world as it is with a full realization that we are here for a reason, that if we didn't deserve to be here, we wouldn't be here, and that we will continue to suffer various inconveniences and emergencies until we make the necessary corrections in ourselves. If, in the course of time, therefore, it becomes evident that we are not going to be able to maintain a high standard of physical existence, that the time will come, and even the most optimistic person admits that the forests are going to give out, the water supply is short, that all these minerals in the earth are being depleted, and someday we'll have no more gasoline. All of these things cannot be solved by the blind hope that science will find a substitute. Things will improve only when the individual begins to conserve resources, where he doesn't waste them anymore, where he does everything possible to protect the well-being of all of his society, that he does nothing that will deprive others of their rightful parts in the facilities and problems of life. If he can get to this point of view, he will then find that his energies and resources will extend considerably further than they do now. We have to learn to live together and work together. We have to learn to be patient with the mistakes of each other. And we must learn to step in and take care of a job if somebody else can't do it. These types of thoughts begin to develop a model person. Then we can safely say that progress has meant something to us, not because we sat on the top of it, but because we realized how poor it was and did something about it. Progress is not the advancement of the status quo. It is not the individual continuing to do what he's doing now and hoping to get away with it. It is not a problem of constant and eternal waste and extravagance on the basis of an absolutely bountiful deity who will always take care of him. These things are fallacies. What is actually necessary is that the individual right here builds the golden age that he believes is good, that we build our new world of reformations right now. And that was the basis of the great utopian dreams of the past, that there would come a time when humanity, through a common judgment, through just kindly and good-natured realization of facts, would build a world that it would be nice to live in. And not only nice to live in, but less dangerous, in which there would be no more war, and no more strife, and no more pillage, and no more religious intolerance, and no more backbiting and slights, petty crime and major crime, but that people would live together in a community of purposes, dedicated to trying to do a better job of living than they had ever done before, and resolved to continue to build a better world than they have ever known before. And instead of sitting back and saying how proud they are of our progress, that they will sit back and rather shamefully remark that it's too bad that we've had our delinquency so long. We can make a little bit of progress in these ways. And nature, always helpful. Never forget that nature is there to help. Is creating a problem situation today that is monumental. We probably will never face, or have never in the past faced, a world dilemma such as we are in now, which seemingly is, there seems to be almost no way out. But there is. Don't worry, there's a way out. But it is a very serious dilemma. And instead of saying, oh, this is awful, we have to say to ourselves, well, at least the divine power of things is mindful. And when we fail, the universal laws are going to step in and make sure that we succeed. And all of this misery is simply to remind us that for several thousand years of civilization, we've done it the wrong way. If we continue to do it the wrong way, we will continue to suffer. If, however, we learn the lesson, recognize the mistakes, and correct them, we can go on for a long time in a golden age we have created for ourselves. In the meantime, each person, quietly, personally, gently, simply, in his own life, should live the best he can, keep the rules as far as he can keep them, practice the virtues of his religion, for all teach the same, and realize that education begins after he leaves school, and that from the time he becomes a mature person, he is in the position to improve, gain, and enlarge understanding and realizations, and that he is every day of his life in the presence of an opportunity to grow, to outgrow something and to grow into something else. That every moment that he is here is an opportunity to meet the challenge for which he was intended. And out of this, gradually he will observe something. If his temper is better, his blood pressure will be better. If his habits are more moderate, his health will be more vital. If his attitudes towards other people are more constructive, he will find a world of constructive attitudes headed in his direction. Whatever he corrects, does, is going to be an end of some kind of misfortune, sorrow, pain, or trouble. He is going to be able to gradually learn that though there be many that fall upon the right hand and many upon the left hand, the just person cannot be moved. The just individual is not only thinking of the small span of his present life, but by establishing his integrities, goes forth into the unknown with a better hope. The more we are able to live well here, the greater reason we have to hope that we will be properly cared for after we depart. As long as we are willing to pass over into another life without any preparation in thoughtfulness and virtue, if, as most Orthodox people believe, we are going to God without any of our mistakes corrected, waiting for the bounty of heaven to cure us, this, I think, is going to prove a disappointment. It should be a disappointment. In fact, it is the only disappointment. Now, if that happens, by any chance, we are not going to be eternally punished. We are just going to be reminded that we've played hooky, that we very carefully avoided the lessons we were supposed to learn. And when a child insists on avoiding the lessons that are supposed to be learned or are necessary to him, there's one answer: send him back to school. And if the situation gets so that we get out of this world without doing something about it, we'll be back, and we will be back to correct the same faults we face now. We are not going to have new faults unless we get a few new ones, and a very few that we haven't tried already. But we will find that if we don't do something now, we have no hope of getting any better. And I think that this is a more useful attitude than the materialistic attitude of science, that we begin with a drop of life and end at an ash at the end of it all. That there is nothing beyond or before. Whereas the fact is there was much before, and that's why we're here. And there's much beyond, and that's why we'll probably be back. But whatever it is, the sooner we learn to think straight, the more pleasure and helpful and useful life will seem, and we will be able to achieve. The better we live now, the better our destiny forever. We never have to face the same problem twice, because the moment it is solved, it is no problem. And if we keep on solving old problems and not making new ones, one of these days we're going to come out even with the laws that govern the universe. And we're going to discover that we live in the best world we will ever know, the most just creation that we can imagine, under the most benevolent powers that can be conceived of by the most abstract theologian. All is well as far as it goes, but at the moment it's not going far enough. Therefore, we have to do a little better. In the meantime, we hold good thoughts for each other, and we preserve our dedication to the divine power that rules all things. And that, folks.